For the first time in over 20 years, we have gotten our first major DC and Marvel crossover, and they are bringing it back to their roots, with their very first crossover being Spider Man Superman back in the 1970s. And guess what we just got? Yep, Superman and Spider Man once again. And of course, I had to get the Red Sun variant cover because Red Sun Superman is awesome. And you can fight me on that because I'm correct and he is awesome. And that whole storyline is awesome. So now some added context for this. This is the first time we've gotten any crossover from these two companies on this standard in this scale in over 20 years. And you got to figure it's been over a decade, almost 12 years since DC has beaten Marvel. So you got to ask yourself, are these two connected? Probably, but you also have to realize these deals take years to go through. So while it may have helped push these deals through, these deals were in the process well before that. But do I believe that Marvel saw themselves get beat in a quarter for the first time in over a decade and said, yeah, let's get these crossovers out? Yeah, I do. I mean, that's good business. It's good business for DC too to say, hey, we just dominated Marvel in a quarter. Let's get these out. And that's good business on both companies, and it gives the fans what they want to. Because how long have we been wanting these companies to work together again, but they haven't been able to because of all these licensing and IP issues? I mean, hell, look at it. We're just still going through it with Spider-Man. Spider-Man can't appear in anything still because of licensing and IPs in live action, and that sucks. But we're finally getting Marvel and DC willing to work with each other at least. Sony, get it together. We don't want Spider-Man held in limbo forever. So Sony, get it together. But Marvel and DC, thank you guys at least for finally giving us fans some of what we want because this is amazing. And let me tell you, this comic is great and it's girthy. Not only do you get the mainline comic where you get Spider-Man and Superman dealing with Brainiac and Doc Ock, but you also get all these variant comics in it as well. You get Superboy Prime and the Amazing Spider-Man. You get just normal Superboy and Spider-Man 2099. You get a comic with Lois Lane and Mary Jane Watson. You get so much of this stuff, and it's amazing. All some of it feels extremely meta, where it's commenting on the comics, the history of these heroes. Where when MJ and Lois Lane talk, you hear a lot of the history between these characters. I mean, MJ even talks about it. They're on a bridge fighting a Sentinel, and MJ says, "Oh yeah, Peter has a thing about bridges since a high school or a college girlfriend." I mean, there's so much references to the history of these characters, and they talk about, oh, how many times have you died? How many times have you been put in danger? They're calling back to all of the comics for these heroes, and it's so great because we all as comic readers know this history, but the characters in it forget about it so much because of all these reboots we get and all these new universes we get. So they don't know all this stuff that's happened to variants of them all the time. So to see it recognized in a comic on this scale is amazing because not only is it being recognized from the DC side, it's being recognized from the Marvel side that yeah, all of this has happened and it is part of our history. And it's beautiful when they're willing to do that because it's so entertaining and it's so meta. That's one of the things I love is that when comics are willing to make fun of themselves. Like I talked about it just today with the Web of Venom. The fact that they were willing to call Venom thick, give him the Frank Miller Wolverine's pose for a couple panels, it's beautiful when comics are willing to look at themselves and be like, that's funny. Because it is funny. As readers, we see all of this, but the characters themselves don't know how goofy they're being, how unserious they are. I mean, unless you're Deadpool, She Hulk, and stuff like that. But, not everyone is able to see that. And this comic gives us some of that. And the tone on the characters feels amazing. We get these two symbols of hope coming together. And not only do they inspire the reader, but they inspire themselves. I mean, there's one point during the fight where Spider Man gets caught under some rubble, and Superman goes to him and he goes, Peter, I believe in you. And he gets up. For me and us as readers, you know what it would feel like to have Superman tell you he believes in you? I would run through a brick fucking wall. I don't run for anything. I mean, you can see it. Look at my hands. Look at my arms. I'm a big dude. I don't run for nothing. But if Superman told me he believes in me, not only would I would run through fucking walls. And I would do that with pleasure. That's how amazing it is because these characters are such symbols of hope, not only in their universes and their worlds, but in ours, because they teach us from a young age that we can do better, that we can be better, and that we should find the hope in people. We should find the betterment in people. And we actually talked about this on the podcast. If there were to be an American version of Goku, it would likely be Spider Man or Superman because they are that popular and they stand for the same level of positivity, youthful pleasure, and just all of that stuff that you need in life. You need to be able to find the joy in life. You need to be able to be like, hey, let my inner child out. Let myself have fun. Let myself find joy. Let myself see the good in people. That's what both of these characters do. They let you see the good in people. Now, the one complaint I will have, thankfully, it's not too bad on my cover, but there is a mainline cover, I believe. I believe it's the main cover, where Spider Man's leg looks really weird. He's not the best drawn, which is unfortunate, but the art style is still good enough and is serviceable, and it does really well. It does what it needs to do, but there are some panels in this when you can tell that this Spidey doesn't look the best, but that's okay. I can look past that because this story itself was amazing. All the offshoots in it were amazing, and I didn't even mention the Power Girl and Punisher one that finishes it off. That was freaking beautiful. Getting to see the Punisher in this was something I did not expect, and you also get to see Jimmy Olsen with Carnage at the Daily Bugle, which is amazing. That was my favorite one by far because how goofy it is. They bully him multiple times for not saying the hyphen in Spider-Man, which is again another meta reference that is just amazing because that's why he ends up getting done dirty in the comic is because Carnage didn't hear him add the hyphen to Spider-Man, which I mean it's just so amazing that they're willing to do all of this, and it's just so well done. They give us all the characters we care about from these stories. We get Jay Jonah arguing in the last comic panel, which I believe that one is just titled Daily Bugle and Daily Planet, I think. But you get to see him and Lois Lane argue over the superheroes, argue over Spider-Man, they argue over Superman, they even argue over Batman. Jay Jonah says he wouldn't trust Batman. And it's just so beautiful, man. You get to see all these characters interact, and it's so fun, whimsical. It brings you back to your childhood, where all these characters were parts of your childhood, and you get to see them interact. It's something in a way we haven't seen in 20 years. Now, I have to say, do I believe this comic is worth it? Absolutely. Do I believe this is one of the best comics we've gotten in the past week? I'm not going to go that far and say it's the best we've gotten in a while, but it's something you should look at if you go to your comic book shop this week. It's one of the best I have seen lately. It came out on March 25th, I believe. Don't quote me on that exactly, but I believe it came out in recent weeks, and it's amazing. It was worth the money, and I don't really say that very often for comics because I'm more of a digital reader myself. I always have been, but lately I've been getting more into physical prints, and this was actually one of my first physical prints. So this is going into collection, and this was 100% worth it. This was one of the first comics I got today. I actually went and did my very first comic haul today. So this was worth it, and it will never not be worth it. And it's something I'm very happy to have in my collection. Now, let me go over some of the spoilers. You get a point in the comic where you get into the big overarching story of Spider-Man 2099, of Superboy, and then you also get Batman Beyond there. And you get Bruce Wayne in his earpiece. And they leave that on a cliffhanger. So I believe when we get the second version of this, which is going to be done by Marvel, that will be followed up on because it would be such a wasted opportunity if they didn't. All of those characters are awesome in their own right. And they leave it on a cliffhanger where they're going off to space to take care of something. And it's just amazing. That leaves the door open for so much more we can get. And I hope we do get that in the second version because we are supposed to be getting a second edition of this that's going to be done by Marvel. I believe that's coming out April 22nd or April 25th. Don't quote me on that. But it is coming out that week. I'm just not sure which day that week is the Wednesday, but it is coming out that week. And that's something that I think we should all be looking forward to because not only is that going to continue the Superman/Spider-Man storyline, but it's also going to probably continue those variant storylines. But those variant storylines were inarguably my favorite part of this because they're just so amazing. They add so much value to this. If this was just a main line, I would be a lot more hesitant to say, "Hey, you should get it." Even though the main line is amazing. I would say it's definitely a buy with the main line. But when we get all the variants that are mixed in, we get the Superboy Prime with Amazing Spider-Man. That was amazing. We get Batman Beyond in it. It was Superboy and fucking Amazing Spider-Man, or Spider-Man 2099, sorry. It just adds so much more value. It adds it from something that you should buy and should read to something that I would consider a must buy. And I don't throw, and I never will throw must buys out there very often. other than when it's truly deserving, because I don't believe overrating comics is something that I want to do and something that anyone who wants to be genuine with people should do. I will tell you very honestly, if I believe something is good, then there's a very big line between something being good and something being a must buy. This comic, with all the add ons and other universes added onto it, is a must buy. And I will say that very confidently. And it is amazing. I cannot, I've gone over how many times in this video that I've thought it's amazing. And I'll keep going on about it because it is amazing. But I think I've rambled on a bit too much for you guys. So I would apologize for that. But now I got to ask, if you've read this, did it live up to the hype? If you haven't read it, do you plan to read it? I hope you do. I hope you guys have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more.